We will start our town board regularly scheduled meeting for October 9th at 7:06 p.m. First item of business is roll call. Ms. Eicher.
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Miles Baker.
Here.
Cindy Showerman.
Here.
Tony Bennett.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Ivan Adams.
Here.
Ms. Shaw, Mr. Bennett, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? But before we start, I do want to say I would like to take an extra moment of silence tonight to reflect and to think on the Las Vegas tragedy and keep in our hearts and prayers those who have been physically, emotionally, and mentally affected. And most of all, as a sign of respect and tribute to first responders, not only throughout our country and in our cities, but in Windsor. It is these folks who every day step to the front lines and put their lives on the line for us. So with that, Mr. Bennett.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item on the agenda this evening is a review of the agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration by the board. Are there any new items for consideration? If not, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented tonight.
Second. A motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Ms. Showerman, approving the agenda as presented tonight. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the agenda is approved as presented. Next item, item 4 is a proclamation for National Community Planning Month. Whereas change is constant and affects all cities, towns, counties, and other places. And whereas community planning and plans can help manage change in a way that provides better choices for how citizens work and live. And whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the full benefits of planning require public officials and citizens who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. And whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States of America and its territories. And whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month provides an opportunity to recognize the participation and dedication of members of planning commissions and other citizens who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of their communities. Now, therefore, the town of Windsor, Colorado, does hereby proclaim October 2017 as National Community Planning Month in recognition of Windsor's dedication and commitment to community planning. Is there anybody in the audience who is associated with planning this evening? If you would please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Item 5 is another proclamation, a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas Colorado Revised Statute 18-6-800 defines domestic violence as an act or threatened act of violence upon a person with whom the actor is or has been in an intimate relationship. Domestic violence includes physical, verbal, sexual, economic, and other forms of abuse committed by a person to injure, coerce, control, punish, intimidate, and/or exercise power over their current or former spouse, significant other, dating partner, or co-parent. Whereas domestic violence is a violent crime that can affect any person regardless of age, gender, socioeconomic status, race, religion, nationality, or sexual orientation, it accounts for 15% of all crimes reported to law enforcement and is the leading cause of death for pregnant women in the United States. Whereas children who live with and witness domestic violence at home are far more likely to have long-term physical and mental health problems, receive lower grades in school, engage in risky self-destructive behavior, and become future victims and perpetrators of domestic violence. Whereas victims of domestic violence face numerous personal, social, societal, and legal obstacles, such conflicting feelings about their abuser, cultural, or religious beliefs that justify staying in the relationship, lack of validation or support system, expensive costs of living, fear of escalated abuse and retaliation if they try to leave, lack of physical evidence to prosecute, and more. Whereas a woman's place can help domestic violence victims and their children, case management, legal advocacy, counseling, and other services to 652 people. Their mission is to shelter and help empower victims, survivors of domestic violence to become safe, secure, and self-reliant, and through education and collaboration to mobilize our community and help prevent domestic violence in this community. Is there anybody this evening associated, if you'd like to come forward? If you'd like to just state your name and address, and then if you have anything further you'd like to add.
My name is Carol Patch. I'm with A Woman's Place, and this is Jamie Dale, also with A Woman's Place. We're a confidential shelter, so I'm going to give you our P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 71 in Greeley, Colorado. I just wanted to say thank you so much. That was a mouthful. I'm well aware of that. A Woman's Place began in 1978, created by our community of Weld County to support the victims in Weld County. And over the last 3 years, as our small communities continue to grow, we have increased services by 25% every single year. And really, we are there because of you. Our community allows us to keep providing services to victims every year. So thank you so much for your support of victims and support in our community.
Just add one more thing. I am a Windsor resident, so it is personally meaningful for me that you did take this issue on and decide to share it in this forum. So I do want to thank you for recognizing this very important issue that often goes unseen in our communities. It's often something that could be happening in your neighborhood and you would never know. So we're grateful for that recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Item 6 is a presentation from the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration Nation Gold Medal finalist. Please come forward.
Hi.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Did you want me?
Are you coming over? Okay, well, it's a pleasure to be here, and this is a great honor for Windsor. The National Gold Medal Award is the most coveted award in the park and recreation profession, honoring agencies and communities across the United States who have exceeded industry standards and establish a higher standard for delivering public parks and recreation services. The The gold medal finalists measure the impact and the benefit of their services while addressing the community needs through the involvement of its citizens, staff, and elected officials into all planning processes. This Town of Windsor Parks, Recreation, and Culture focuses on the NRPA's 3 pillars of conservation, social equity, health, and wellness. Windsor Department demonstrates excellence in the long-range planning, putting vision into action each year. Creating an innovative culture has become a habit for the Windsor Parks, Recreation, and Culture, and we applaud and congratulate them for the outstanding accomplishments they have made. The American Academy for Park, Recreation, Administration is the governing organization for the National Gold Medal Award. It consists of 125 distinguished practitioners and scholars in the field who are committed to the advancement of park and recreation field. Rooted in the desire to advance knowledge, encourage scholarly efforts, and provide services to advance the profession, the Academy embraces the opportunity to raise the bar and enhance the quality of parks and recreation services to the local community through the National Gold Medal Program. Windsor truly represents the best of the best. Since the award's inception in 1965, there has only been a little over 200 agencies named to be gold medal finalists. Windsor has truly demonstrated significant success with the design and delivery of superior services to the community. Windsor Parks, Recreation, and Culture is now in the upper echelon of over 8,000 public park and recreation departments across the nation. This finalist award was given to the Windsor Parks, Recreation, and Culture at the 2017 National Conference of Parks and Recreation in New Orleans recently. And we're delighted to be here to get to participate in this local acknowledgement of this prestigious award. So on behalf of the Academy, Musco Lighting, who is our sponsor, and the National Park and Recreation, we congratulate all of you on the success and the achievement of this award. It's truly a great prestigious thing for Windsor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to pass it off to 2 of the people who really, I think, made it possible. Is our Parks and Rec Department Director and his, what is your official title? His Recreation Manager, Eric Lucas and Tara Foch. So
Congratulations.
Item 7, Board Liaison Reports. Mayor Pro Tem Baker, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board.
Yes, the pre-cab met October 4th in the rec center. They stole my thunder, obviously, but congratulations to them on being a finalist. And our PA, Mr. Lucas, gave an update at our meeting, so everyone was excited to hear the news. There was also a review of the citizen survey as it pertained to the Parks, Recreation, and Culture. There was a master plan update, which is what we saw last Monday at our work session, so it was very similar to that. And finally, there is a budget presentation as well as it pertained to Parks and Recreation. That's it.
Okay. Town Board Member Showerman, Water and Sewer Board, Clearview Library Board.
Water and Sewer Board will be meeting Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning here in Town Hall. And Clearview Library Board met last week, and they are wrapping up the year-end items and planning for next year, including looking at budget options for both scenarios of the potential ballot initiative regarding the new library.
Okay. Town Board Member Bennett, Planning Commission, Windsor Housing Authority.
No updates at this time.
Okay. Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Historic Preservation Commission, Great Western Trail Authority, and Chamber of Commerce.
There's no update on the Historic Preservation Commission as we meet this coming Wednesday. Great Western Trail Authority met last Thursday night. I was unable to attend, and I haven't gotten an update from the director of that committee as to what they discussed. With regards to the Chamber of Commerce, there was a first event of its kind in Windsor, a Experience Windsor Day last Thursday that I was able to take part in, as well as town board member Showerman, where we went to several different businesses in Windsor. There's other members of staff that were there as well. It was very informative. I found it extremely enlightening as to some of the businesses that have been here in town the whole time I've lived here, almost 11 years, and I never knew what they did till I got to step foot inside of them. From Owens, Illinois, out on the east side of town, to the Eames Community College was there and discussed their South Campus, as well as the ethanol plant that we have here in town. And I feel like I'm forgetting one.
High Hops.
High Hops, there we go.
Their expansion.
How could we forget them? And their expansion project that they've been working on since becoming annexed into Windsor. So it was extremely exciting. I don't know if Ms. Showerman has anything she'd like to add to that, but she did participate in that Chamber of Commerce event.
No, just it was a great event. When they have it next year, if you have the opportunity, I'd highly recommend it. It was amazing to see a hands-on first-person view of what some of these amazing businesses that are in our community are doing.
That's the end of my report.
Okay. Town Board Member Adams, Tree Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor Board.
I know I'm very small, Mr. Renman, but I was at that meeting.
Oh, you were there too.
I mean, I know I'm very,
I'm so sorry.
I'm invisible a lot of times. So anyway, I just had to mention that. It was a wonderful day. I've never seen anything like it in Windsor, and it was good. Can I add that? Was that all right?
Hey, duly added in.
It has nothing to do with the tree board and the Poudre Valley Trail Board, but the tree board did meet at the end of the month, and the group's been working on a policy, procedures, guidelines for the planting, care, selection of trees in the Windsor community, and they'd like to discuss it with us, the board and staff members, and get our feelings about it. They reviewed and studied the Fort Collins plan and the Greeley plan, and they think they have a better one than either one of theirs. So they would like to present that in a future work session. The tree board has agreed to host the annual Regional Tree Forestry Conference in Windsor this year. And I don't think that's the actual name, but I can't for the life of me think of what the actual name of that conference is. The calendar displaying Arbor Day posters drawn by Windsor School students was discussed and approved for this year, and it's already out, and it looks very good. Excuse me. The Poudre River Trail Board met on Thursday, October 5th. Andy McRoberts, the Greeley Culture, Parks, and Recreation Director, reported on sections of the trail that are in the process of repair, and they have a lot of work yet to do on that. And he also reported on the TAP grant improvements to the Bro section of the trail. And there's just a lot of damage, and there's a lot of work that has to be done. But we have 2 grants that we're working on, plus donations from Windsor and Greeley and Weld County to make that happen. Andy also discussed the need for a permit process for use by organized groups. Because he said that one of the problems, the organized groups just feel they can automatically go on the trail. The other day, they ended up having to remove paint from the trails, and the organized groups said, well, we're residents, we can do what we want on it. No, they really can't, because it takes a lot of time and effort to, so we're gonna work on a permit, and we're gonna try to make it very, so it doesn't take a lot of time. Also, interviews that we've been talking about, they were held for the new Poudre Trail manager, but the committee did not find any manager that they really wanted, and so I'll say it this way, alternative solutions were discussed, but we'll probably open it up again for more interviews, because they just weren't pleased with the interviews they had. And then some management items, I'll just quickly tell you about those. The board got a $20,000 mitigation reward from a company and a $750 gift donation from a user of the trail. And those were they were something that we needed, and we were very well, they were very well accepted. We also discussed regular distribution of newsletters, and we discussed a November volunteer appreciation party. I'm sorry, my nose is running and I'm having trouble here, but I think that's the end of the report.
Okay. And I have Downtown Development Authority, which I have no update. However, I do have a lengthy North Front Range MPO because we sat through 5 different presentations. So I won't go into detail on the presentations, but if anybody has interest and wants to see the PowerPoint related to those, I can get you that information at another time, but I will kind of go through some of the highlights. And we also had a 34 coalition PAL meeting prior to that before. So first of all, just a couple of North Front Range MPO project status updates. The Crossroads Boulevard interchange and bridge, of course, construction with that is underway. They hope to wrap that up sometime later this spring. The truck climbing lane construction is wrapping up for that. Our design and build out for North I-25. We had 3 bids come in, and all 3 bids were over budget, so we have resent those out, which is something called BAFO, which means best and final offer. And so we hope we get back in some proposals this go round, hopefully in early November. We probably will be about a month delayed on that project to start some of that activity on North I-25, but we hope we'll get some proposals that fall into our the dollars that we need it to, and we can get going on that. So we hope to get to that in November. Of course, for the Big Thompson Canyon flood repair, the canyon is closed for winter construction. However, CDOT is hoping and looking at maybe opening it up either at least for Thanksgiving weekend, possibly the entire week of Thanksgiving, and also a couple weeks in Christmas. So just look at make sure you go to the CDOT if you're planning on traveling that way to see if the road is open or closed. A couple of things from our director in terms of summary reports. So CDOT summary, October 23rd, there is a transportation summit in Denver that many of our members are attending. We had a report out from VanGo. So the VanGo program is maintaining a 90% occupancy rate right now, with 6 vans having 7 registered riders and 10% of vans with waiting lists. They actually met with the Vice President for Human Resources of Golden Aluminum in Fort Lupton and are thinking of starting up 2 company-paid van pools between Greeley and Fort Lupton, with possibly 100 employees taking advantage of that in the near future. The main thing about that program is when we first started that VanGo program 6 years ago, we were in the red in that program, and it currently is now, it's self-funding itself. So the good news is that program is built up enough right now where the MPO no longer has to subsidize that program. Bike pedestrian counters, the North Front Range purchased 3 additional bicycle and pedestrian counters, 2 permanent and 1 additional. The town of Windsor is currently using one of their non-motorized counters. I also have provided to all of my fellow board members a letter pertaining to the Volkswagen settlement proposed mitigation plan. So it is a letter that we would like to move forward so that we ensure that the North Colorado and the MPO secure the funds that we would like to see. The funds will go towards North Front Range buses. Their fleets have been operating beyond their useful life, so we would like about 18% of that settlement funds for transit, as well as we are seeking funds to support electrification of transit vehicles in the ozone non-attainment area to support efforts to meet the national ozone standards. So Windsor will be, hopefully if you support this letter, then I will be supplying a letter in support of that as well. Some of the different proposals are, that we sat through one on the North I-25 EIS commuter rail update. So the news about a the North Front Range getting a commuter service or rail anytime soon is probably, it's not in our near future because one, funding is growing slower than the population and the congestion, unfortunately. Fixed transit costs are very costly, and no one can agree on an implementation strategy. So, but it was brought to our attention. We do have some numbers in front of us and some things. So folks are still looking at that, but nothing is agreed upon at that point in time. Another presentation that we saw is we saw a presentation on the Colorado Remote Tower Project. For those of you who don't know, but you know the airport between Loveland and Fort Collins is going to go to a remote tower system. And I believe that is like the only airport in the country that is moving to the remote tower. So it is kind of breaking grounds there. We went through what that means and what that will look like in the near future as they move towards implementation of a remote tower. We also sat through a Colorado road usage charge. So as we all know, Colorado voters to date have not supported any kind of initiative that would increase gas taxes or sales tax for transportation funding. So this is another alternative that CDOT is looking at, which means that those of us who use the roadways would be charged a mileage fee for every road that for every mile that we drive in lieu of paying the tax at the gas pumps. So it's a very complicated program, but that was presented to us as well as maybe an alternative that we will be looking at in the future. And then something good, I think, to our ears here in Windsor, and especially to our growing senior population, we did look at a coordinated plan, and the coordinated plan is really looking at transportation needs for individuals with disabilities, older adults, and people with low incomes, and identifying where we have those areas within our community and what kinds of funding and transportation alternatives or what kinds of transportation mechanisms we can create once we are able to define and determine what those gaps are. And then lastly, we sat in on the 2017 summer ozone season and briefing from the Colorado Department of Health. I think the good news is that we currently, our air quality in northern Colorado is improving. So where we have to register, right now it's 75 parts per billion. We are in that 75 conformity. However, we have to start moving towards a 70 parts per billion. And so we will be implementing some other things to get us there, but the good news is that at least the information that was presented us to date is our air quality has been improving. And then we did have a meeting prior to the MPL meeting for the US 34 Pell Grant, which is examining US 34 and what kinds of improvements need to be made along that roadway corridor. So I do want to let you know there are 2 public meetings that are coming up if anybody wants to give input as to what they would like to see happen on the 34 corridor. Those public meetings are, there's one on November 8th at the Big Thompson Conference Room and CDOT Region 4 from 5 to 7. And one on November 15th at the Best Western located on I-25 and US 34 from 4 to 7. So if anybody's interested in making sure that your concerns are heard on Highway 34, you might want to make a consideration to attend those public meetings. And with that, I will conclude my report. And now in all my, okay. We will move on to item 8 of this evening's agenda, which is our public invited to be heard. This is for individuals wishing to participate on a non-agenda item. And so the first person that we have this evening is Dan Segmiller. If you'll come forward, state your name and address.
Ms. Mayor, members of the board, thank you. I'm Dan Segmiller, live at 2044 Bayfront Drive in Windsor. Just wanted to take a minute and thank the town for the school resource officer that has been allocated to our schools. Thank Chief Klemick for his vision in helping us pull that together, and for the funds that have helped to establish that jointly with the district. Just want to report that to date, we've already had some significant actions take place that have helped to keep our kids much more safe, relationships being built. And I just, as a superintendent, but also as a father of 3 children here in the schools, want to say thank you. I very much think this has been certainly a blessing for the district and for the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anybody else this evening who wished to speak during the public invited to be heard? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to item B of our agenda, which is the consent calendar. On the consent calendar this evening, we just have 2 items: minutes of the September 25, 2017 regular meeting and a report of bills for September 2017.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we approve the consent calendar as printed. Second.
Motion on the floor for Mr. Adams and a second for Mr. Bennett approving the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the consent calendar is approved unanimously. Moving on to item C of our agenda this evening is board action. First item this evening is ordinance number 2017-1544, an ordinance approving the rezoning of tracts D, E, F, and a portion of tract G in the Ptarmigan Business Park subdivision and all of the Lutheran Church annexation, JBT Associates LLC, the applicant, Steve Steinbicker Architecture West LLC, the applicant's representative. This is second reading. It will require a supermajority vote. It is quasi-judicial, and Mr. Hornbeck will give presentation. Mr. Hornbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Town Board. As mentioned, this is second reading of this rezoning application, which has been reviewed in accordance with Article 5, Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code. The site vicinity is located generally northwest of State Highway 392 and Road 5. The current zoning is general commercial, and this request is to rezone approximately 62 acres from general commercial to residential mixed use, or RMU. And the rezoning plat itself. The purpose of this rezoning is to allow for single-family and multifamily uses within the development, which will require additional applications for a major subdivision plat as well as site plans for any multifamily development. The proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, particularly Chapter 5B, the growth framework, Chapter 5C, the residential areas framework plan. And there was a neighborhood meeting held with this application, and the notification for that, as well as the public hearings, was done in accordance with the municipal code as shown on the enclosed map. At their September 20th, 2017 meeting, the Planning Commission forwarded to Town Board a recommendation of approval of the rezoning ordinance, subject to all remaining Planning Commission and staff comments being addressed. Town Board approved first reading of the rezoning ordinance at the September 25th, 2017 meeting, and there have been no changes to the ordinance since first reading. I do want to note the applicants are present, should you have any questions for them, and that's all I have.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Hornbeck or the applicant? Mr. Baker.
Has there been any movement on the traffic study for the road extension to the property north?
There has. We've made progress in moving forward with that. All the all the property owners have agreed to the terms, and we've kicked off with the first meeting to get that started.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I just have kind of a general question. So, and I don't know if this is for you or the applicant. So what happened to the Lutheran Church? Are they just not coming to this area at all? Did they find another location? Does anybody know what happened with the church?
I think they may have found another location, but I'm not sure the
Okay.
history.
I believe it. The property was annexed over a decade ago, and that church is actually the church that's on 392 in South Fort Collins.
Oh, okay.
And I can't recall.
Redeemer?
Yes, exactly. Thanks.
Okay. Are there no further questions from the board? This is second reading, so I would entertain if there's anybody, would I entertain? Public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. So if there's anybody in the audience who wish to make comment on this ordinance, now would be your time. Okay. Seeing none, do we have everything then completed for the record, Mr. McCarter, to move forward?
It would so appear.
Okay. Then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2017-1544.
Second?
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Adams approving ordinance number 2017-1544. All in favor vote yes and opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously. Moving on to item 2, a public hearing. A public hearing for ordinance number 2017-46, an ordinance of the Town Board of the Town of Windsor, Colorado, approving the First Amendment to the amended and restated service plan for Windsor Highlands Metropolitan District numbers 1 through 11, and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the town and the districts. This is legislative action. Mr. Carter will give presentation, but first I need a motion to open public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move to open public hearing.
Second?
Motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mrs. Oops. Oh. I said no, but I meant to say yes. My finger moved too fast.
Heard the votes.
And a motion from Mrs. Oh, thank you. All in favor vote yes, opposed no.
Mr. Bennett?
I know that.
Did you press the right button?
I did. Yeah, I did it.
And the public hearing is open, Mr. McCarter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to reemphasize, this is a legislative public hearing, so the usual formalities that go with quasi-judicial don't apply. Really, the purpose of this, it would be just like a legislative committee meeting where you just take information so that it will help you make a decision, but your decision tonight is not necessarily limited to the record made at the public hearing. This is a request for an amendment of a service plan. This idea first came to you several months ago when Mr. Turner appeared and suggested that development on the west side of Larimer County Road 5, Fairgrounds Boulevard, Fairgrounds Avenue, required some additional financing. That is the Loveland side of Fairgrounds, but the proposal was to allow a Windsor Area Metropolitan District to designate those areas to the west as future inclusion areas. So that's an important part of this, is that the districts want to identify these areas for future inclusion in the districts, but they would, even though they're on the Loveland side of the line, they would be governed by the Windsor districts. There are some important components to this that Mr. O'Leary and Mr. Turner can help you understand. We've also got an executive summary from Mr. O'Leary in your materials that is very complete and really lays out not only the structure of things but the financing. Carolyn Steffel, your Metropolitan District Attorney, has also taken a look at this and is satisfied that the district's application meets the statutory requirements. Her comments are minimal, but we do retain her for that purpose. Mr. O'Leary can get into the details of this to help you understand what they're proposing and why. My recommendation at this point is that you give him a fair hearing, and assuming that he has satisfied the statutory requirements, that you consider the next item, which is the ordinance that would actually approve the service plan amendment. And with that, I would open the floor to Mr. O'Leary with your approval, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely.
Can I say O'Leary again? Sure. O'Leary.
Hello, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is David O'Leary. I'm with the law firm of Spencer Fain in Denver. I represent the applicant this evening, and I also represent the metro districts as they currently stand. The metro districts right now are Windsor Highlands Metro Districts 1 through 6. There are 2 proposed future inclusion areas or proposed expansion areas. There is a portion of the property that is referred to as Country Meadows 3, which is in the town of Windsor boundaries. It's already been annexed, and I believe a site plan has already been proposed and approved for that. Nope?
No, it's submitted.
It's submitted.
Scheduled
And scheduled for hearings at some point in time in the future. That is within the town of Windsor boundaries. It's already annexed. There is an additional piece of property that is referred to as the Thornburg Hamilton property. That is in the boundaries of the city of Loveland. Mr. Turner approached the city of Loveland for the development of that property, and they recommended that we actually approach the town of Windsor to coordinate the Metro District financing for pieces of this. The development will occur just like any other development. The developer is always on the hook. Will have to come to the town for subdivision improvements. Each water, sewer, street that have to be proposed and approved will be submitted for approval of that development plan and considered for approval by the town of Windsor for the property that's within the town, and for the property in the city of Loveland for the property that's in the city of Loveland. The Metro districts provide a potential financing source through a governmental entity that can help finance the public improvements that are within those boundaries. Tonight, we want to establish your jurisdiction to conduct this public hearing on the service plan. We want to review the service plan from a technical point of view regarding the need for the services to be provided. We'll review the service plan from a financial point of view to show that it's financially feasible and reasonable. And we'll summarize our remarks and respond to any comments from the town board or questions from the public, and then request a town ordinance of approval approving the organization of the district so we can go to district court, submit it to the electors, go through an election that will be conducted in November, and then once those election results are certified to the district court, the districts will be organized. The future inclusion area property, that's the Thornburg Hamilton, we still have to receive approvals from the town for that inclusion, and those pieces of property for the inclusion have to receive the approval of both the town of Windsor and the city of Loveland for those inclusions. So there's more work to be done on the development side of things, but in order to establish the district side of things, we're going through that process now for the service plan amendment. With regard to jurisdiction, a copy of the service plan was submitted in August 27th and revised and resubmitted, incorporating all the comments from staff and your special counsel. Was resubmitted on September 20th for distribution. We received additional comments, and those are outlined in Carolyn's memo. I did address all of her comments and revised the service plan, the town IGA, and the executive summary to incorporate all of her comments and recommendations. That service plan is now in your town board packet and should be complete and should encompass all of town and staff comments that you're hearing tonight on first reading. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 321204.5, which is the municipal approval of service plans or service plan amendments, if the boundaries of the proposed districts are located entirely within the boundaries of a municipality, before the organization of the district, we need an ordinance or a resolution of approval from the town before that can be submitted to the district court and the electors for the election. In accordance with your town ordinances, we have provided notice of the town board meeting. We were required pursuant to your town ordinance to supply letter notice to all the current district board or district residents, all the future inclusion area residents, and anybody of record as far as that shows up on the county assessor's tax rolls and property owner records. We also published notice in the Fort Collins Coloradan, and we have provided that notice at least 20 days prior to this hearing to both the residents by mail and by publication. Accordingly, we believe we're in full compliance with the Special District Act and your town ordinances with regard to jurisdiction. It's our opinion that the town board has jurisdiction to hear the service plan this evening for the public hearing, and we wanted to provide the town board and any of the constituents an opportunity to be heard and answer any public comments at the public hearing. With regard to the service plan, we provided an initial memorandum in March of this year. It outlined a map that is probably in your board packets that has the purple, blue, and green. The purple constitutes the current boundaries of the Highland Meadows Golf Course subdivision that's in the current boundaries of Districts 1 through 6. The green is the area that's Country Meadows, or Country Farms 3, and the blue area is the Thornburg Hamilton. So what we're proposing is to expand the boundaries to include the green and the blue. The blue is the future inclusion area that will require both approvals of both the town and the city of Loveland for inclusion. But right now we're just asking to set up those districts for those future considerations for the board. Mr. Turner from Hillside Commercial Group, he's also the primary property owner of the future inclusion boundaries, all the expansion boundaries as well. There's also the Highland Meadows Golf Course was previously designated as a future inclusion area in the 2009 amended and restated service plan. We're now proposing, if that's something that they choose to do, we're proposing to form a district number 11 that will solely contain the golf course. It will not be taxed. There's not going to be a mill levy that's assessed. It will be solely revenue based. So any of the revenue from the golf course will have to pay for whatever debt or obligations. It'll have to stand on its own. It will not affect the homeowners or the residents, and no mill levies from the other districts will be used for operations, for debt, or anything else. It will be a completely standalone district for purposes of ownership, operation, and maintenance of that golf course. So there should be no changes with regard to that. With regard to the boundaries of districts 1 through 5, where all the current residents and property owners are, we have indicated in both the executive summary and the service plan that there will be no changes to their mill levy, there will be no increases to their debt, there will be no adverse impact to any of the services that are provided to them. This amendment is solely to expand the boundaries to allow the future development of the undeveloped property within District 6 and all of the Country Meadows, Country Farms 3, and the Thornburg Hamilton property. We anticipate that property will contain approximately 18.6 acres of residential development, another 263.8 acres of golf course tracts, and the Thornburg Hamilton property is about 109 acres of both residential and commercial development. It's anticipated to be included and developed within the city of Loveland. They will still have to go through their development approvals, and it's zoned right now mixed use. We're proposing a residential area and 2 commercial areas, but that's still up for approvals of that city as well for the future development. We've provided some initial projections on what we believe could be projected in the boundaries of those districts. And that summary in your executive summary, if you like, I could go through that if it's helpful to you as well. We have approximately $30 million of capital improvements that are planned for the development in Districts 1 through 5. That was based on the original plan. Districts 6 through 10, which is the expansion area and areas that have not been developed yet, we have estimated an approximate $37,417,774 of additional capital improvements that are necessary for the streets, water, sewer, drainage, and all the public improvements for that area. In addition, the Highland Meadows Golf Course is estimated to be an additional $7,715,675, which is anticipated to be included within District Number 11. We anticipate a full build-out. There will be about 890 single-family homes in Districts 1 through 5, with an additional 777 residential units, including single-family homes, condos, townhomes, cottages, and senior living facilities. and approximately 807,000 square feet of commercial, which will be contained within Districts 6, 9, and 10, which are the commercial districts. The other districts are residential in nature. At full build-out, we estimate the assessed valuation based on current dollars today at about $62,301,477, based on assessed valuation possible based on our projections right now. The estimated cost of the public improvements needing to be completed is, again, the $37 million worth of additional public improvements. These public improvements are needed in order to complete the project and make all the property permit ready. The debt is proposed to be issued in one or more series of bond issuances. Right now, there's an outstanding bank loan for the property. There's not general obligation bonds, but there is general obligation pledges of mill levies to pay on the outstanding loan. The proposed aggregate mill levy for District 6 through 11 will be 39 mills, which is in compliance with your current model. The existing Districts 1 through 5 will remain at 35 mills. Those limitations are further restricted in the debt service mill levy for 6 through 11 under your current model, caps that maximum debt levy at 34 mills. The total projected mill levy of 39 mills, based on current financial projections and the pro forma that's attached in the financial plan for the service plan, we ran it at 29 mills for debt and 10 for operations and maintenance, so we had sufficient amount to operate the things that the district would operate that's not dedicated to another water or sewer district or to the town. Those limitations allow for financing of about $28 million of additional financial capital improvements. We've requested debt authorization of $30,905,000, which allows 110% coverage. Right now, we're basing those projections on what we think as far as these dollars, but we asked for the contingency to allow for financing variations or changes to construction costs, development, build-out, or absorption of the project. Regardless of the cap that we're asking for, the project will only be able to finance what it can finance. So if it builds out slower, or if it builds out less, or the property values are lower, we won't be able to finance that maximum amount. Additional revenue debt is proposed of $9.5 million to cover the golf course acquisition, if indeed that is valued at that level. We know that the capital improvements for the construction of the golf course was about 7.7. We just don't know what the revenue debt could actually support, but we ask for a little bit of leeway as far as that goes, as far as financing of $9.5 million. The maximum voted interest rate is 12%, and the underwriting discount is 5%. That's consistent with your model service plan as well. We're proposing a formation election for 7-11 in November, and there are no current residents within District 6 through 11. There's no current debt or bonds that have been issued on that property either. We have provided notice to all those property owners, and this public hearing will allow them an opportunity to be heard as well. The maximum term of any bond issue is 30 years. For general obligation bonds, we requested authorization for 35 years in order to allow for the additional time to develop the commercial. Sometimes commercial property takes a little longer to develop out. Our current financial projections project out about a 35-year period of time, and that may occur longer than a 20-year period of time for the complete build-out. We do have an intergovernmental agreement that's in your packet that's consistent with your model as well. We will develop and finance our own property. We're not asking in this project or this development for any town incentives for the financing of our debt right now. So we ask your indulgence and permission to proceed forward for a district election in November, and we're here to answer any questions that you have on that as well.
Are there any questions? Mr.
I
Baker?
have a couple questions. Since this is going to be in 2 jurisdictions, would future amendments to the service plan need approval of both jurisdictions?
We will need approval of the town of Windsor for the jurisdiction, because we are approving it in the town of Windsor jurisdiction. That was the recommendation of the city of Loveland as well. The future inclusion or the inclusion of those properties into those districts will require the consent of both jurisdictions for the inclusion, but the financial modeling and the pro forma won't change based on jurisdictions. So the short answer to your question is it's a town of Windsor service plan is a town of Windsor jurisdiction for the districts as well.
Okay, and then you mentioned the fees are set at 35 mils for the existing districts. Are these somehow siloed off of the totality of the new districts can fund themselves, obviously,
Yes.
through your pro forma?
Yeah, the financial pro forma that's attached is a supplemental pro forma. The original pro forma and the original service plan will stand as it is, but the new, for District 6 through 10, basically, that financial pro forma that's attached to your service plan will stand alone. It'll be able to finance its debt. So typically, consolidated service plans and coordinated construction will occur jointly. However, the districts can stand on its own. It can finance its own independent of the other residents. It will not adversely affect the current residents at all.
Okay.
Any other questions, Michelle?
Are the first two filings of Country Farms part of a metro district?
They are not. They are an HOA. So those existed prior, a long, long time prior to, I believe, even these districts. Country Farms, the Country Farms 1 and 2 were HOAs and formed prior to these districts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's the logic behind putting them in the third filing in a metro district in contrast to what was done with the first two?
Well, those were formed before the Metro District was even considered. There are actually 2 phases within the Highland Meadows Golf Course subdivision that are not in the Metro District as well. So they're adjacent to, and they were financed directly by the developer, and that was before they considered a Metro District for that. That was back in 2004, 2005. So it took them a little while to consider the formation of the districts, and by that time, most of the infrastructure had already been constructed. So there's some limitations on the financing of that infrastructure as far as when it was financed versus the ability to finance through a metro district. So you kind of can't recover for the stuff that you did a long time ago.
And then the other question I had is, what is this small segment kind of cut out of the northwest corner?
That's owned by CDOT. That's owned by CDOT,
Okay.
so it's not owned by us.
And then when I looked at the map, just kind of trying to familiarize myself with the area, it looks like the Thornburg-Hamilton section goes clear down to the north border of the Budweiser Event Center Fairgrounds property. Is there a reason that southern segment isn't being included in this? Is it anticipated that it would be added down the road?
Different property owner.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Adams?
Ken. No. Okay. My question is, I've heard you mention schools, and I'm going to ask you about the schools. Do you know the plans right now as which school district and how they're going to involve kids in both sides of the road? Because one side is Windsor, one side is Loveland, 2 different school districts. Can you talk about that? Sure. And particularly now with our growth in Windsor, we have a lot of problems with our growth.
If it's okay with the board, I'll do it as quick as you want me to do it, in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, but because there's people in the audience here, I think I should do an introduction on why we're making a request. And I think the board generally knows why, but I don't know if the general public does. Is 2 minutes okay? Ken? Yeah.
I'm seeing yes.
Okay, great. If I'm going too long, just put your hand on your face and I'll wrap it up or something. So, John Turner, 6379 Crooked Stick, Windsor, Colorado. I have a map here where some of the residents will want to see what's going on. But this is the map that's in your packet. And this
Is there a way to get that map up on our GIS system by chance, or is that too?
Is it in the packet?
It's in the packet.
Yeah. It's page 130 of the packet.
Do you have the thumb drive on this one? Is the thumb drive on?
You're already sticking your hand up there.
While they do that, do you want to address the question of the school district?
Sure. Real quickly on this, well, I'm going to show this because you got this map and they don't have this. The Green property, Country Farms 3, I held for a school site. Cooter Schools made a request for the Green site, and I held it for them for about 5 years. And then I ended up building a site up in Timnath at Bethany Elementary. I built them a school site in Timnath Ranch, and they let go of this site. Then Windsor Fire wanted a fire station there, and you guys had an election, and it didn't pass. Then they ended up 3 or 4 years later getting a piece of ground right on 392 next to Clear Valley REA. So then Country Farms 3 kind of sat, and this was part of the Windsor Highlands annexation in 1997. 1999 or something like that, built Country Farms 3, we did Highland Meadows. Then the Thornburg Hamilton piece I originally bought back in the 90s, and it was zoned industrial. And when we did the golf course, I changed it from industrial to business to protect the neighborhood. The Thornburg Hamilton site was annexed to Windsor.
Thank you.
There it is. Was annexed to Windsor, annexed to Loveland as one of the potential sites for Anheuser-Busch. Greeley competed, Greeley competed, Loveland competed, and Fort Collins competed. And Fort Collins obviously got Anheuser-Busch. So everybody goes, why did Loveland get so far out here? So then when we annexed the Windsor Highlands annexation in 1997, there was some little unfinished business. One was between the green and the blue, the town limits go to the half section line. Usually a town grabs all of it or none of it. That was unresolved back in 1997. And also County Road 5, which is now Fairgrounds Avenue, tapers right here on the blue section there for that first half mile. It's all in Loveland. So and then it starts curving over to the east while it's going on our what I call tract H. It comes back into the Windsor boundaries, and now Windsor has control. But that whole half mile between County Road 30 and Colonial is all in Loveland. And we did it for a variety of reasons. So then I got approached about 2 years ago by Poudre Schools to sell them a school site because all the Timnath schools are full. And they're busing all the Windsor kids from Highland Meadows and Highland Hills and Highland Farms and Highland Meadows Golf Course to Timnath. Well, Timnath is growing, so they said we have to get a property. And they didn't even want a property because this was all zoned business. And that's not where you put a school. You just put a school usually in a residential neighborhood. They needed a site east of I-25, south of 392, but the county lines right at Colonial or north. They had to stay in their boundary to be able to do a school. This was the only ground left. And so I sold them that site last summer. So they have a site there, and they actually have funding to build the site. They're going through some other bond issues.
John, when you say they...
Poudre Schools.
Poudre Schools, okay.
Poudre Schools, it's an elementary school site. Okay? So they've acquired the site last summer, and they want me to deliver the infrastructure so they can start building by May of 2018.
Can you point out where the school would be up there?
It's right where it says Thornburg Hamilton on the blue. That's their site. Okay? Everything else around there is zone business. What they allowed, and David made a slight correction, it's not zone multifamily or RMU. It's still zone business. They're allowing me in Loveland. There is some portion that's administratively approved in their business zone for residential. We're not doing a zone change on the Loveland property, but they're allowing this to occur because of you need transitional land use from schools. You don't put office parks or industrial parks or hotels right next to a school. So they're being very accommodating. So Loveland's being very accommodating to Poudre Schools. Maybe not so accommodating to me. So on Fairgrounds, they want, if you look on their comp plan and their long-term growth plan, they want a major collector there. It's actually on their comp plan, it doesn't say major collector, but because of the proposed RTA stuff, which was north of Budweiser Events, they have big plans for that area. They want something very big and substantial. They want major recreational, something major to go there. And they're going to kind of hold out. So they want a big road there. They want two lanes in each side, a divided median, accel, decel lanes, bike lanes. It's not even on their plan. Also, they asked for a light. And we did a traffic study, and a light's not required. But they said, no, we want you to do a light. This is safety, public safety. We don't care if you do it. You could do a tunnel if you wanted, but we eventually settled on doing a light. So that was the main driving force. They're making us do stuff that's not required within their own rules. And it's quite a bit of money. It's basically the same road section you see at the summit in front of the fairgrounds. And it's all going to kind of taper down into, and it transcends as you go up through Country Farms 3, but it actually extends over the Loudon Extension ditch there. So the road improvements and crossing the ditch, and we're lining the ditch. So that was the basis of the request. When they told me everything that they wanted, I said, I can't do that. There's not enough substance there. There's not enough development left. And then the previous town manager here, who's now the assistant town manager in Loveland, Rod Winsing, came up with the idea, why don't you extend your metro district from the golf course? It wasn't my idea, it was Rod Winsing's idea. Because this would have been a little metro district in Loveland. So then Cindy asked the question, well, why didn't you go to more of Country Farms? Well, one, it wasn't developed yet. And two, what it does is it helps do all the interchange improvements. The other kind of request that Windsor is supporting at a staff level, and Loveland does, they have a flyover planned on County Road 30. And I've been fighting this flyover for at least 2 decades. Do you guys know what a flyover is?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So that's on Loveland's plans, and Mr. Wagner here says, look, it's on their plans, and we're not going to allow you to develop without accommodating that. So all of a sudden now County Road 30 is going to be a major collector also. So I got County Road 5 as a major collector, I got County Road 30, and I got to figure out a way to pay for it. And that's how that's why the Metro District is our only solution. So I think I did that. No one's slapping their face yet.
John, relating to my question about the schools, as I figure this, it's going to be about 105 students in that area alone. And I disagree with you that the kids are all going to Timnath. A lot of them are coming to Windsor.
Okay, I that was a generalization.
So, it's going to be silly to have kids coming into Windsor or Timnath when there is a school there, but yet there are rules about schools kids going to schools if their schools are closed, where they actually live.
Are full. The schools,
yes.
Yeah, they're full.
Okay.
And so, and I just wanted to correct, I don't think they're all going to Timnath, but and it's only 105 if I figured correctly, but.
Mr. Arnold?
Ivan, so this is a Poudre school. All of Larimer, Windsor, north of where is it, Colonial?
Yeah.
Go to Poudre School District as their school. Now they may do a school of choice to Windsor. So this
East of the boulevard there?
Yes. Yes. Everything from Bison Ridge, River West, Highland Meadows, Country Farms,
High Point Estates.
High Point Estates, some. Because
Okay,
they go to
High Point, I
Thompson.
think it's Thompson.
So they all go to Poudre. And right
Well,
now,
it gets
they all either
complicated,
they all go to Bethkey or Timnath. And so they're all going to be consolidated and go to this school for elementary purposes.
Yeah, generally, most of the kids west of the county line out there, south of 392, are going up to Timnath. Most of them are. Where you're correct is there's some school of choice. So that is a correct statement that some school of choice does go to Windsor. So,
Mr. Baker?
I have a question and I guess a rant about the light. Is that going to be a full functioning stoplight or is that just?
I've paid for a full 4-way light.
Where's the light proposed?
Sorry.
Right at the green, blue, and purple.
Okay.
Interchange of green, blue, and purple. And it starts out the north-south way. First of all, none of the development per the traffic plan is even trigger a light. They're asking me to do the light because of safety for the kids. So what I'm required to build with the opening of the school is the light north-south. East-west doesn't need it, But your town manager required that gets designed that way, and I think that's one of his questions tonight. He has.
I don't have a question.
You don't have a question? All right, I think he might have a question.
My rant is, I think it's a little unfair, and I guess if it's Loveland dictating it, that they're putting this fully on your development. When I think we know that most of a huge amount of traffic is going to be coming from the south. Or going south towards the Ranch Summit and the new Brands development. So that's my rant. I don't know if, are you paying for the whole thing? Is Larimer County helping at all?
I'd like to hug you, Miles. I need to hug somebody. Yeah, they've pushed me around pretty good. I got to pay for it all. And I can't pay for it. This is one of the ways. And the last thing, and no one's even brought it up, is the 3 fences.
Yeah.
So they're making us do 3 fences between the development and the school across County Road 5, and that's another thing that there's lots of. But my doctor said I can't complain about all this stuff anymore. It affects my blood pressure. So.
Additional questions, Mr. Baker?
I do have one question. It might be for staff. In your memo, there was discussion of a plan for the median or something. Is that going to stretch the entire road, or are you just talking about? Well, you met with Loveland and everyone agreed?
Yeah, staff has been meeting with Loveland for the past 6 months or so regarding the MOU with Loveland and coordinated planning of the Fairgrounds Avenue corridor. Right now, the plan is only from County Road 30 south to Crossroads. So.
But it will continue as development happens?
Yeah, we're actually having a consultant is helping us with the two-dimensional, I guess, right-of-way plan. So it'll dictate, or it'll confirm the access points that we've already been agreeing to. It'll address things like the landscape medians within Fairgrounds Avenue, lighting, street furniture, those kind of things. And we expect that we'll have something this week probably to look at. And then we're going to reconvene a meeting of all of the property owners in the corridor. We've previously met with Mr. Turner and the other 5 property owners individually. But once we have a draft to share with them, we're going to try and set up a meeting and get everybody in the room to, I guess, get their buy-in on that plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any additional questions from board members? I have 2. One is, this is maybe for Mr. O'Leary or Mr. McCarter. At what level, so did Loveland have to approve this metro district since it's in their jurisdiction?
No. And this service plan in this district is not currently in their jurisdiction. What they will have to approve is the future inclusion area and any inclusions. So anything dealing with Thornburg, Hamilton, they will have to approve, which includes inclusions, development plans, anything.
Okay. And then you talk about districts numbers 1 through 11.
Yes.
I only see 1 through 10 on the map. Where is
11's a golf course.
11 is what, the golf course?
The golf course.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so if there's no further questions from board members, then this is the public hearing. So this is the opportunity for anybody in the audience who wish to come up and speak to the board about this subject matter. Is there anybody who wished to come and present during public hearing? Okay, seeing none, we have everything we need to conclude, Mr.
Sure sounds like it, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you.
then I would seek a motion to close public hearing.
I move that we close public hearing.
Second?
Motion on the floor from Mr. Bennett and a second from Mr. Redemeyer to close public hearing. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And public hearing is closed. Moving on to item 3, ordinance number 2017-46. An ordinance of the Town Board of the Town of Windsor, Colorado, approving the First Amendment to the amended and restated service plan for Windsor Highlands Metropolitan Districts numbers 1 through 11, and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the town and the districts, Legislative action, is there anything further to add, Mr. McCarter?
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Hey, any additional questions from town board? Okay, seeing none, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2017-46.
Second?
Motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer and a second from Mr. Bennett, approving ordinance number 2017-46. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the ordinance passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item 4, resolution number 2017-81. A resolution approving the form of an intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Windsor and the Raindance Metropolitan District Number 1 with respect to future development within the Raindance Planned Use Development. Legislative action, Mr. McCarter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution really is asking you to approve the form of an agreement that we have very carefully negotiated with representatives of the Raindance Metropolitan District. That district has stepped into what is ordinarily a process that we handle at the administrative level. The subdivision development agreements we handle usually between the town and the developer. In the case of Raindance, because of its size and its scope, the Metropolitan District is taking a substantial lead on completing public improvements. So the agreement that we would ordinarily strike with the developer has a huge component that is built in as an intergovernmental agreement between the town and a sister government, the district. In order to satisfy the statute, each one of those agreements, each one of those future filing development agreements would require town board and district board approval. What this resolution says is the form of the agreement is approved. And in the future, as long as each future filing agreement takes that form, the mayor is authorized to execute it on behalf of the town. And then at the next regular meeting of the town board, we would ratify those agreements that have already been signed by the mayor and the district through probably a consent calendar item. So this is really just setting up pre-approval of the form of the agreement and thus satisfying the statute that requires both governing boards to take action on the agreements. As I said, the agreement has been negotiated. Its terms have been worked over by the district's lawyers, the developer's lawyers, the town's lawyers. It's been well lawyered. And, but each future filing always has some unique language. There's always something that is special to that piece of ground, as you might imagine. As long as the agreement tracks the form that we're asking you to approve tonight, then the mayor will be authorized to sign it. It doesn't mean that the mayor must sign it, though. If the mayor, for any reason, or staff has any reason where we want you to see it before it's executed as opposed to ratifying it after, we have that right reserved under the terms of this resolution. And that gives us a little freedom, but the idea is that we don't want to hang up the developer while waiting for the next town board meeting. We want the mayor to be able to execute the agreement, get the process rolling, keep the development process rolling, and then come back at the next available time to ratify future agreements. So that's what this is about, satisfying the statute while making certain that the development process moves along at some predictable rate.
Any questions from Mr. McCarter or Mr. Baker?
Have we ever done this before?
I have never presented to you a form agreement for approval like this. So it's not been done before.
Any other questions, Mr. Bennett?
Is this specific to just this one development, or
Yes.
does this have implications for other future developments around the town?
It's specific to Raindance because of Raindance, the size and scope of Raindance, and because of the role that the district is playing in what would ordinarily be a developer activity, the provision of public improvements for phases of development. So that's why you've not seen it before, is because we've never had a district willing to step forward and take so much responsibility that would ordinarily be negotiated with a the developer.
Any other questions? Is it also in place in order to maybe expedite some of the regular process of some of this?
I think
as well?
it allows us to proceed with subdivision approvals and make certain that you can execute a future IGA with a district and keep those development schedules on target. Understanding that each time you sign one of those, it will come before the town board as a ratification of your signature rather than authorizing you in advance to sign it. That's how this is structured.
But we have at any particular time, we could ask to have further discussion instead of just.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if there's anything that is uniquely unique, as opposed to just unique, you could say, you know what, I'm not sure I want to sign this. I would like the full board to take it up, and we would try to schedule it for the next regular meeting of the town board.
Okay, Mr. Bennett.
So the purpose is to expedite the process. I'm a little confused now. If the mayor can sign it, but we still have to ratify it, there's still a board meeting involved.
There is a board meeting involved. I guess by having the mayor's signature, the developer and the district know that that step has been taken. But I suppose they do run the risk that the town board, the full town board, might not ratify it, in which case you've got an agreement that's on
I'm just thinking about the timing. It's still possibly 2 weeks.
Sure.
It could be 2 weeks before it's ratified.
That's right.
So the developer would do what? They still have to wait for 2 weeks.
Yeah, the developer takes a little bit of risk that there won't
Okay.
be ratification.
Okay.
But they have indicated that they're prepared to, the district has indicated it's prepared to take that
Okay.
risk.
Okay, any other questions? Does this resolution need any public comment this evening? Okay. Seeing none, and if there is no further questions, I would seek a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2017-81.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Bennett and a second from, I'll give it to Mr. Adams this evening. Approving resolution
You're not
number
invisible.
2017-81. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Item D, communications. Communications from town attorney.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Communications from town staff. Anything further, Mr. Ballstead?
As this is National Planning Month, I did want to thank the town board for allowing myself and Mr. Hornbeck and 3 planning commissioners to attend the state planning conference last week. It's a great conference, and I was able to earn enough credits to maintain my certification as well. So just wanted to say thank you.
Any communications, chief?
No communication.
Okay, communications from town manager, Mr. Arnold.
Next week, you have a work session downstairs. It'll be the DDA board presentation of their budget. And then also the MS4 stormwater permit update, where we are. More importantly, what your 2018 work program will look like for that. Then October 23rd, you heard that we will have the Public Works building dedication, and we'll send you out a notice that will start at 5 or earlier, but we'll do the formal dedication at 5:30. And then, as we talked about previously in the work session, I'll probably look at that November 6th work session as a continued dialogue on the impact fee. And what I'll do is bring you a proposal of everything we're going to send out to the lists of everybody that you're going to see, and then you can tell me if it looks what you want from your invite perspective and such, and all the material out there. So we'll get that put together this week so you can review that and talk about it next week. That is all I have, I believe.
Okay, communications from town board members. Any communication?
No.
The only thing I have is just a reminder to everybody, we do have coffee with the mayor this month on the 21st at Robin's Nest. So starting at 7:30 and concluding around 9 o'clock. So with that, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer and a second
Oh,
from
I see that
Mr.
link.
Baker for adjournment. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. And we are adjourned. Thank you.